Euphonium. Oh wow! They sent me a Yamaha tuner! Wow! They sent me a cardboard tube! Whoa. Trying to find a good instrument that fits your needs can be difficult. I know it was for me. Over the course of this summer, I spent hours scouring over eBay, Reverb, and Craigslist trying to find a real euphonium after a long year of having nothing but that plastic thing back there. But eventually, I came across this. This is the Besson BE967 compensating euphonium, and I really like it. First of all, Besson is a brand from England that is known for being very good at making euphoniums. Mostly. For a brief period in the 90s, they had inconsistent quality because of less experienced workers and overproduction, but for most of history they were seen as the world's best euphonium manufacturers. Basically, if you wanted a euphonium, you were getting a Besson. Of course, today we have many other euphonium brands from many different countries, but Besson is still seen as one of the best makers, and they did technically invent the modern euphonium. Now onto the instrument itself. Now, before this, I've never held a compensating euphonium before, so I was expecting it to be extremely heavy, but I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that it's about as heavy as any other 4-valve euphonium that I've used. Besson was known for using very thick sheet metal that is extremely durable. However, that was back when they made their instruments in England. Sometime around the 2000s, they went bankrupt and shifted their manufacturing to Germany. And instruments from that time, which includes this, were known for using thinner sheet metal that is not nearly as durable. You can probably guess this by the very obvious dent repair marks on the bell here. In fact, I can even slightly bend it just with my hand here. Now, thinner sheet metal is a good and bad thing. It's bad because, yes, it is easier to dent it. However, it's also good because it means that it's way, way lighter, which is a net positive for someone like me who is going to be carrying this on their back to and from their college campus every Tuesday. As I mentioned, this euphonium comes equipped with the compensating system. I explained this briefly back in my video about all the different kinds of euphonium, but as a refresher, when you push down the 4th valve, the air goes through this tuning slide, and instead of going out to the bell, it gets redirected back into the valves and through these extra bits of tubing on the back. The reason for this is because normally the euphonium has some very out-of-tune notes in the lower register, and adding this tubing just gives it a bit of extra length, which helps those very few notes that you'll very rarely play sound slightly more in tune. Whether or not it's worth the potentially hundreds of dollars more is up to you. I just think it's a weird, cool thing. Speaking of valves, these valves are buttery smooth. I've literally never used valves as good as this on a euphonium. They are just so fast and so smooth. If anything, I'd say that it takes a little too long for the valves to come back up, but that's just a matter of getting a few new springs. Well, that's cool, but at the end of the day, a euphonium is nothing if not something that sounds beautiful. And how does it sound? Great. I'm by no means a professional, and I don't have that much experience to compare it to different things, but it sounds very much like a euphonium, and it's perfectly fine for my needs. Now, like I said, this instrument was made in the time when Besson manufactured in Germany, so it doesn't completely have the British euphonium sound that they're famous for with their older models. However, some people on the internet do claim that the German models do still have a noticeable bit of that sound. Although, having said this, it's important to remember that the sound you get out of your euphonium depends much more on your own skill rather than the instrument you play it on. So basically, this euphonium sounds like a euphonium. Now onto a few quirks. Yeah, I'll say quirks. The The little hole where your thumb rests between the first valve and this brace thing right here is very cramped. And then you also have the first valve compensating slide right here. So if you have very big hands, you might want to be wary. This euphonium is not in the best cosmetic condition. There are little dents everywhere, there are scratches all over the place, and the lacquer is even coming off in a few places. However, despite this, it still works perfectly. The tuning slides all work, the water keys are great, and like I said, the valves are spectacular. I got a comment about this recently, and I want to emphasize this idea. The cosmetic condition of a brass instrument usually has little to do with how it plays. You could have this old, nasty-looking trumpet that makes you want to wash your hands after playing it every time, while at the same time playing and responding beautifully. On the opposite end, you could have a $100 trombone straight from China that may look amazing but plays like absolute crap and will probably erode away after like 2 years, leaving little stalagmites of raw brass on your floor from emptying the water key. If you can try out an instrument before you buy it, or if you're buying online from a big trusted seller that fixes up their instruments, then it can be a very good idea to give these older instruments a chance, and you can save a ton of money and frustration while doing so. So what about the value of this euphonium? Should you buy one? Well, to tell you the truth, I found this on an eBay listing for a grand total of $3,000. That's right, I could have bought a car, but instead, I got a mini tuba. Euphoniums, for some reason, are just extremely expensive instruments, and whether or not you should drop that much on something like this comes down to a lot of different factors. Do you want to play the euphonium professionally? How much do you care about durability and retention of value? How often will you use this euphonium? Why are you even getting a euphonium in the first place? There's sort of this backwards exponential curve in terms of price versus quality, where the further you go in terms of price, the less and less the instrument will be better. For example, a $2,000 instrument will be leagues better than a $1,000 euphonium. However, a $3,000 instrument will only be slightly better than the $2,000 one, if that makes sense. The point I'm trying to make is that it's very important to think about how you value your instrument and how far you're willing to go to get that. I could have gotten a Wessex Dolce for almost half the price of this, but I personally considered the longer lifespan and higher quality build of the more established brand to be worth the difference. Also, I kinda always just wanted a Besson instrument. So in summary, this is a good euphonium, and I'm very excited to actually start playing it in a band setting after 2 whole years of nothing but multi-tracks. Thanks for watching this video. I spent $3,000 on it, and have a nice day.